Hey everybody, welcome to the Recoup. I'm Cooper Daniels and I'm a guy that knows a little about a lot. And today we're here with Aaron Martinez, the founder, creator of Headline Crypto, Headline News, and several other projects. How you doing, Aaron?
Great, really good. It's nice to
Yeah.
be back. It's good to be back.
Yeah, man. It's nice to have you. And you're a regular guest on the Recoup. I love having you on. So thanks for joining us again. It seems like every single time I have you on, it's just you are headline just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I feel like your team how is your team growing along with you, or are you still a skeleton crew of a few?
So there's still three core team members, but we're about to bring somebody else on, but we're not going to announce that just yet. But
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah.
still three currently though. Yeah.
Still three, and you got somebody that's you're not ready to announce.
Yeah. We're going to be bringing a couple more people in. We're going to start scaling pretty quickly with everything we're
Mm-hmm.
doing. But the funny part is, like, every time I come back, we're going to have to do longer and longer episodes as we
Yeah.
add on more and more projects essentially to what we're doing. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, last time you were on, I attempted to name all of the different projects and all the different things you guys are doing, and this time I just didn't even try. But I
right.
mean, there's some new ones that I definitely want to get to. Is Algo Glyph, Algo Cloud, I think is getting ready to go live or to test. What's going on with
Yeah,
Algo
yeah,
Cloud?
yeah.
When is ready?
So we'll be ready for a beta in the next probably 2 weeks or so,
Okay.
with our core analytics part of the platform, which is it's really a small part of the platform, but it'll be a good way to get feedback on our UI, UX, and different screens and stuff for it.
Yeah. Okay, so look, and then I also saw a tweet recently about you investing in server hardware. We're going to talk about all of these things, but there's some things that have happened this week that I feel like people are very interested in. So I think we should probably just dive into what's happened in the Algorand ecosystem, obviously specifically Tinyman. Your take on what that is, the status of it right now, and then let's talk about you've gotten some heat also. So, what is clear to me before you start talking is that as I've been watching you specifically, but headline in general, you guys are clearly operating with good intentions. That's obvious. But there's been some criticism of the paper you wrote and kind of, breaking down how the attack was done and all that. So where let's just start with maybe there. How are you feeling? I know that you were struggling with that the other
Right.
day.
So let's do it this way. Let's back up a little bit, and I'm going to tell you a story real quick, right? Of how
Let's
kind of
hear it.
how this all happened.
Okay.
So basically, the day that the exploit was discovered on Tinyman was also the day that we were launching a staking program for liquidity providers for the HDL token, right? So
Right.
we had been like teasing this big rollout where we were going to incentivize liquidity providers because up until this point there was an incredible amount of volatility, which made it a not always pleasant trading experience for people that were interacting with the token, right? So we had this big
Mhm.
plan to roll out a staking program for the liquidity providers. So all that day that was happening, we were getting all of this feedback from all these people that wanted to participate and all these emails and messages. And we had it set it up so there would be a 24-hour window to sign up for the program, right? And the reason that we did that is because we were planning to do it all manually. So
Right.
the people that signed up, we were going to manually verify how much they had committed for the staking for the liquidity pool. And then we were going to allocate that amount in the HDL token to do as a reward after 30 days. And because we were
Right.
doing it manually, we had some very like specific sort of guidelines, like you have to sign up within 24 hours and you have to be able to maintain that level for 30 days. And, there were different things, and they had to, manually fill out a form. And then all these people were asking if they'd been verified. And so there was, hundreds of people essentially that were commenting, tagging, DMing, emailing
Yeah.
within this like 8-hour period, right?
Right.
As all this excitement was starting to build about this liquidity pool that we were going to do. And
Right.
then around like 5 or 6 p.m., I think, here, Texas time, we first started to hear that the Go BTC and Go ETH pools had been exploited. And we're still in the middle of trying to work through this liquidity, situation. And from what we understood in the immediate aftermath, it was very isolated, and what was happening wasn't going to really affect what we were doing, right? But we were still getting all of this interaction from people on social media that were interested in participating in this program we were doing. So because the exploit response was kind of like an ongoing thing, I ended up staying up really late that night, kind of like monitoring the situation, because I wanted to make sure that if things took a turn, that I would be able to, let our supporters know that we were going to have to cancel the staking program, or, just it felt like it was my responsibility to monitor it, right? And then around like midnight or so, it like started to like kind of the bigger picture and the understanding of the scale and the danger of what was happening started to kind of like dawn on everybody, because it started to happen again, and people realized that maybe there was more to it than we originally thought. And because of that, because of how active we were on social media already, because we were, doing our liquidity pool rewards, and all these people were talking about it, we started to get tagged in like every single comment about the exploit, and like all these people were DMing us asking about the exploit. And so we kind of accidentally ended up in this role where people were kind of like turning to us to tell them what was happening, right? Because we were already super active, and I was keeping a very close eye on it. So all these people, and now we're talking about people that weren't even going to be a part of the staking pool at all. So late into the night, I felt like it was my responsibility, because all these people were just kept, asking us, and there was a period where a lot of the rest of the the other projects were either they were sleeping, some were on vacation, and it just felt like all of this was getting kind of like piled on us. And then it got to the point where I was getting really overwhelmed, because I don't know everything that's happening. I've never been in a situation where I had to deal with something like this before, let alone for what we were doing, let alone for an entire exchange, right? But there was kind of like a gap where all these people kept asking, what was going on. I was trying to provide some kind of guidance. And it got to the point where I was like, what, the only way to really like get clarity here for everybody, let's try to see if we can, get a report written up, something detailed, substantive, that we can give to everybody, and, just kind of clear the air, let people make the most informed decisions that they can with their investments. Bear in mind, this wasn't my responsibility for everybody, right? But because people kept, tagging and asking us, I kind of just I was like, okay, well, this is going to have to happen, right? In order to, let's figure out what exactly is going on. Let's figure out how serious this is. So I put out a, go ahead.
You also, sorry, real quick. I didn't, but you also are, have, headline news. There's also, it's on brand for you guys to figure this out and to let everybody know too. I mean, from my perspective, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then also, it also goes a little bit to the philosophy of what a DEX is. A DEX is a decentralized exchange. So a lot of times if there's issues with it, it's incumbent on, independent investigators to investigate and, figure out what's happening, share it with everybody, right? Because it's decentralized, there's not a central source. So and that was one of the tricky things about it. So like, because it's a DEX, it's incumbent on us to take responsibility, to manage it in a sense, kind of, right? So like, coming from that philosophical viewpoint, and the fact that everybody kept asking, I was like, all right, let's make this happen. Let's get it out there. Come hell or high water. Let's see how serious this really is. Mm-hmm. And so I put out a 500 algo bounty, just completely out of pocket, because I was like, if at this point there's hundreds of people that are DMing and tagging us in absolutely everything, because we were still active on social media late into the night, because we were trying to manage everything with our staking pool. At this point, though, late at night, it is well understood among the development community exactly how the exploit happened, and examples of how it was done were shared broadly across Discord, Telegram, Reddit,
Well,
Twitter Spaces.
yeah, and I was up late too, and I think I'm 2 hours. What it would have been 2 hours later for you, I guess, right? Yeah, 2 hours later for you. So then, yeah, because I was up until about 1:32, 2 o'clock, monitoring the Tinyman Discord also, and there were some guys on there that had figured it out, and they were sharing it at that point as well. Yeah,
right. So I went to sleep around 4:30 a.m. Having talked to a few guys, and there was at least one that had said that he was definitely going to put this together for us the next few hours. And I slept for 3 hours, right? So now it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. After having done basically nonstop, just getting bombarded with all this, right? Because I was one of the only people that was active and trying to like run point on this, unfortunately, because we were doing our staking thing, right? So all these people needed to know, and I felt responsible for all the people who were going to be a part of our staking program. Everybody else kind of like piled on top of that too, and I was just like, whoa. So 8 a.m., 9 a.m. The guy that was kind of putting it together, he messaged me. He's like, this is a much bigger problem than we thought.
yeah.
This affects all pools.
Because originally everybody thought it was just tokens that were more expensive than Algo, right?
And then there was speculation about the decimals, or
then there was like certain decimal, but then it became do you I mean, what was it in the end? Do you have a easy to understand explanation?
Okay, so a very brief explanation is that so an AMM, an automated market maker, which is what Tinyman is. The whole way it functions is that people provide liquidity to liquidity pools, right? They put in a certain amount of an asset and a certain amount of algo into a liquidity pool, and it kind of like can like level out the price for it. But unfortunately, there was a design flaw, or there was something missed in the code where if you did that, the code wouldn't always check to make sure that when you were pulling your liquidity out, it's called burning, right? So you're mint when you're creating the liquidity, and it's burning when you pull the liquidity out. It wasn't checking to make sure that what you were pulling out was exactly the same as what you put in. That's like a really layman's terms way of looking at it, right? But it's a very, very not easy to replicate thing, right? So it's not like you can copy paste this and then you can magically steal everybody's money. It was still a very complicated thing to do.
If I read your paper, I'm not going to be able to go do this.
So once we realized the scale and the gravity of the situation, right? And this is me, having been up all night long trying to deal with people, all just wake up, I'm getting this. I'm like, right, this is really, really bad. So I'm at this point. At this point, Tinyman's made their first message. I forgot the exact order of the timeline of things that were happening. And bear in mind, at this point, we didn't have any kind of communication with the Tinyman team as far as what to do with information you were getting, or there was so many different things that were happening, and people kept asking us, and it just felt like, okay, the best thing to do in this situation is to just get it out there as quickly as possible so that people can appreciate the gravity of the situation, right? So that was my entire motivation. So I did exactly what you would do in that situation, because the guy that was working on this, he put together an excellent report detailing the entire timeline of events, exactly how it happened, and then a list of all of the pools that were the most at risk, right? And you absolutely had to have that in there so that the people that had their assets in those pools could pull it out as quickly as possible. So that's exactly what we did, right? I thought this was well put together. It was a very serious situation, and we published it as quickly as possible, right? Within 20 minutes of that, all hell broke loose, right? Because people all at the same time realized this is a gigantic systemic problem that's going to, so basically, the way people have described it, it sent a shockwave through the entire ecosystem of people that were involved with this, right? Because this is a, very well put together, comprehensive thing that shows that this is an extremely serious situation.
Right.
Right. So the initial response was, holy crap, this is a really, really bad situation. And instantly, like, the amount of liquidity that was in time at the time was still a pretty significant amount. Right.
I think it was like 20 million at some point.
It was significant. Right. Yeah. But within like 30 minutes to an hour of this getting released, it was flying out of there so fast because people were like, this is an extremely serious situation. But then something happened that I did not expect at all when I like originally published this, because when I published it, it was just like, this is the truth, this is the reality, this is the transparent thing that people need to do to make informed decisions. What I didn't consider was that by publishing a list of the exploitable pools, people that had assets in those pools could think that, we were doing something that was not constructive because HDL wasn't one of those pools, right? That did not occur to me when I was doing it, because I wasn't thinking about it being like us versus them or anything like that, because I was intimately involved with a bunch of different projects, and I kind of, I love Algorand, and I do everything I can every single day to make sure that it's successful. So the idea that there could be any kind of a contrast there was completely lost on me.
Yeah.
Right. But when people started to think that way, because on social media, there's a real lack of nuance a lot of times about the situation. Right. So like some people make comments like, it's great to yell to your neighbors that their house is on fire when yours isn't. And those kinds of statements started to build on top of each other until it became a really loud thing where people thought that we were actually doing more harm than good by releasing it. Some people thought that, which was it was like devastating when that started to dawn on me that people were like attacking me for having released something that was, a systemic problem that absolutely had to be done. Right. There was no question about whether or not it was the right thing to do. Like it became so like emotionally draining within a couple hours that I like literally almost fell over at one point. I was
man,
it was just a staggering amount of like what, how did this get flipped on me when after I released this? I cannot tell you how many private messages I got from people that said that before I released this, they had no intention of pulling their liquidity, but because of the report that I released, and specifically because of the example for how it was done, and this was like, a lot of these were like actual developers that understood it enough, and they were like, because of that specifically, it was a instrumental reason that I ended up pulling my liquidity. And I'm talking about millions of dollars worth of liquidity, through like messages and stuff I received that potentially could have all been exploited, right? All of that liquidity that was pulled out of it immediately after all these people read it, it saved so many people so much because of that. But so that was where my head space was at, that this could potentially save a lot of people. Bear in mind, I've never been in this situation. I'm not trained to be in this kind of situation. I made the best decision I could with what I had. And then it was just staggering, all the negativity that started to come, almost like it was somehow my fault what was happening, which was not my intention whatsoever. And I was trying to do everything I possibly could to help everybody. And I didn't even ask for any of it, right? Because I was just in the situation trying to help with the liquidity program we were doing for the HDL token. That's how it all started.
Yeah. Well, and so that's like terrible timing, because you were actively doing exactly, you were doing that. It hadn't occurred to me. And I hadn't actually read anybody say that, accusing you because HDL wasn't affected, that, I didn't even, that was lost on me too, until this moment, hearing you say that. So, do you have, because there's an argument to be made. Maybe the step-by-step details were unnecessary to get the scope of the exploit out there, and to let people know how serious it was. Do you have any regrets about that, or do you stand by the move, or
Well, so here's the thing, like, and I'm telling you, like, specifically from some of the messages that I was receiving, is that because we included that example for developers that actually understood it, it was an instrumental reason that they pulled their liquidity, right?
Okay.
Because that was actually in there, and because they actually understood it, you know, it was instrumental in their decision. And this isn't a small amount of money that got pulled out of liquidity because of this.
Right.
So then,
Well,
like, you know,
the biggest,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then, you know, the biggest liquidity providers are usually more sophisticated investors and, you know, people in this that would see something like that and possibly realize, oh man, like this is bigger than, you know, the price being bigger than algo or whatever. This is the scope is much wider.
Yeah. And so there's two different ways that I've been thinking about this. You know, the more nuanced than just releasing something, right? What should have happened, or what I would like in the future, that Tinyman's kind of like, you know, in their most recent post, they said that they're going to be building a comprehensive plan for, you know, for bug bounties and, you know, potentially a like a rapid response kind of situation thing. And basically what would have been an ideal situation would be for there to be an impartial third party who handles rapid response in situations like this. That is not only a, so basically, like, for something like what we created, we would be able to, you know, send this to them, and then they would be able to have, it'd be basically like a DAO structure, right? Where, you know, these people would be able to kind of decide or determine how to efficiently disseminate this information as quickly as possible, right? There's a really efficient system for how to respond to exploits. None of this existed for Tinyman when all this stuff happened, right? A structure to respond to it did not exist. So because of that, you now have to ask yourself, if you are doing something like this, do you go for full transparency, or do you try to pick and choose what people should be allowed to see, right? And if it's their investments on the line or their livelihood on the line, do you want to be the one that gets to determine whether or not people should be allowed to see certain information? In that situation, I did not, right? I didn't want to pick and choose what people should be allowed to see or anything. So I've always been like a, you know, give it to them straight kind of person. I determined that in that moment that the best thing to do would be to just, you know, let everybody see it exactly how it was and let people make the best decisions that they could. And it would be different if like the exact way that the exploit occurred originally wasn't already broadly available on social media. And I've talked to a bunch of developers since we first released the report who said that, yeah, basically, like, anybody that would have been capable of doing this knew exactly how to do it like 12 hours before we released the report, because we ended up releasing the report around noon the following day, right? So, you know, we're talking 18 hours after the exploit happened, 18 hours of Telegram and Discord and Twitter Spaces of all these developers talking in detail and demonstrating through testnet and other ways exactly like the code to replicate it. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of developers who already know exactly how to duplicate it, right? So that was my viewpoint. I was like, including this is not a big deal because everybody already knows exactly how to do it anyway. You know? So I didn't,
like I said,
and still going to have 3 hours of sleep in this position I did not ask to be in. And, you know, I'm just grateful that thankfully it saved a lot of people, potentially a ton, because of all the different messages and everything we've received since then that have been like overwhelmingly, like, you know, gratitude basically for stepping into that role that, God forbid, I did not want that role or ever asked to do. You know, that's not what Headlines does. Like, we're not a rapid response unit for like exploits on an exchange. That's not what we do at all, right? Like,
you literally do everything else, but you don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do auditing stuff. Like, we're not in that business. So
okay. Are we gonna get Algo Audit soon? Is that gonna be the next?
Absolutely not. No. Okay. Oh no, we'll use runtime verification. They're doing a great job. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were getting a lot of heat too. Over the past, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, people are going to point fingers. They're going to have to find somebody to blame. No, we're not going to blame runtime. We're not going to blame Tinyman. These things happen. First of all, you're dealing with an automated, you know, you're trying to automate it's a complex system of an exchange, right?
Yeah.
You know, it says on the homepage, use at your own risk, right? That I mean, this is still kind of the Wild West of crypto. That's how Gary Gensler, you know, describes it. Still the Wild West a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever you're dealing with automated software, this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah. DeFi is a dangerous thing, and I think that people, because it was Algorand and because it is so secure, and you know, I think people thought maybe it was a little different, and you know, this risk wasn't maybe as great in other places, but it's actually more so because it's such a new such a new DeFi space.
Yeah.
So,
and what I will say is, like, right after we released this report, and it basically, like the way people describe it, sent a shockwave through the entire, you know, Algorand community, because of the, like, holy shit, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like within, like, you know, 20 minutes of that, Tinyman reached out and they added us to their private like response channel to basically, you know, contribute to their response, you know, and there were a couple of different key things that they were requesting help with, determining the extent of the exploit, if it had happened before, and kind of trying to put together a list of people that could have been, you know, who could be victims of it, right? So for the last 2 days now, we've been trying to help them in these areas. And like, as of today, I was like, because one thing we can do really well is we can do like social media dissemination of information, all that kind of stuff really well for the most part. And so I've been really trying to like motivate people to wind down liquidity on Tinyman today. So right before I came on, I started to like, you know, live tweet the
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so as I was doing that, the liquidity dropped like 80,000, right? It was at like 500,000, 450, 400, 380, because that shows you the impact that you know, my organization can have on this kind of stuff in a way that, you know, allows for things to be done quickly. So, you know, so that really helps Tinyman too, drawing down the liquidity, so it allows them to finish up their investigation and to roll out the new exchange and everything.
Right.
So
did you hear from Tinyman about the report? Did they contact you after you put that out?
So like, they added us to their private channel probably 20 minutes after that. I haven't gotten a full like conversation whether or not they've read the whole thing or not, but I'm really interested to see which pieces of it they include in their investigation, and how much that was able to assist them in the investigation that they were doing. But like the impact that it had on quickly drawing down the liquidity by getting people to pull out was a incredibly impactful thing, right? And so then, like, in hindsight, the question of would you have done it differently if you could have, I honestly can't say that I would have, because of all the people that have reached out and said that thank you, basically thank you for doing this, even though it's like I took an incredible amount of heat for 24 hours because of it. I can't say that I would have done it differently because of how many people that it was able to, like, you know, get the message out to as quickly as it did. You know, and with that being said, though, I'm not a jerk. I'm not a mean person. I don't want to see anybody get hurt at all. So we're going to be continuing to help Tinyman until this matter is completely resolved, whatever that takes, right? Because we took the role that we did, we feel responsibility to see this through to the end. So we're not going anywhere. We're not going to go, you know, we're not going anywhere to everybody's whole again, essentially, is the point that we're at right now.
Well, and that was a great announcement from Tinyman that they're going to compensate everybody, and you know, the damage has been mitigated, it seems. And they're a small team too. How many guys are there over at Tinyman? Do you know?
You know, that's a very hard question to determine. I have no idea. I know that they had 1 or 2 core developers, but they might have a decent sized team. I'm really not sure. They're kind of spread out in multiple countries too. I know a little bit about the creative lab that Tinyman was built out of, because they also built the Robinhood app and the Algorand Wallet and the Algorand developer portal. So, you know, they're a serious team. And then a couple of them, as far as I understand it, a couple of them were like the key developers on Tinyman. As far as I understand, I don't know a ton about their organization, but I know that our response was instrumental in like assisting
right.
with the individual investors and with them. We've helped them a lot already, and I think they mentioned us in their Medium article that they did about it as well already.
Got it. Yeah,
But
they probably won't be announcing their vacations anymore in the future. It seems. So anyways, yeah, okay. And I had a little bit of an exchange with Michael Cotton from Algomint, and he was letting me know that in some ways it's fortunate, because if they had done this attack in a couple of weeks, the liquidity would have been 10x on Tinyman. So I guess in that way, we dodged a bullet. We learned the lesson. We're learning this big lesson, the community and everybody, the more important people in the community that are actually building these things. You learn these lessons early stage. I mean, I think it's pretty typical. And I think a lot of us are so close to Algorand. It's like we have like a personal relationship almost with it. We obsess about it. We're on Discord. I talk about it all the time on my channel. And we're so close, and we have a lot of our wealth. Some of us have a lot of wealth tied up in Algorand. So we get the doomsday scenario seems much bigger. But then if you see the reaction to the algo market and even the crypto news, it's kind of like it's not as big as maybe we thought it was in the moment. I mean, it's huge.
It's not like the apocalypse. I was on the tiny apocalypse for like 8 hours. In the middle of it. I can honestly say though that 24 hours was one of the most emotionally draining 24 hours of my entire life. Like,
well, and by the way,
almost no way to describe what I went through towards the end of that.
I saw some of your comments on your Telegram group, and I could tell that you were hurting. I mean, I think that's the way to put it, right? It seemed like you were hurting, because you obviously, and I know you enough to know that you're not trying to hurt anybody. You're not trying to, you were not trying to make this worse, and whether people think that you did or you didn't, your intentions were clearly pure, and it was through transparency and getting people to know the seriousness of what this is and to pull the hell out of Tinyman. Yeah. And I think that's been, like you're saying, you've been counting it down. It's down to the 300,000s.
Right.
I mean, we've been talking for a half hour, and it could be I don't even know what it's at.
Hold that thought. Let's
get
a live update. Let's see if we can get a live update here real quick. This might be fun. Watch it goes up. That happened earlier. I was like, oh, come on. It was like down there like 398. And went back up to 400. I was like, who did that? Why don't you read my tweets? Let's see here. We are at 384.
All right. Yeah, because last time you tweeted, you said the last tweet I saw from you was like four something.
Well, I tweeted 386. But do you see how now it's not going down anymore?
Yeah. So you got to keep tweeting.
I stopped that live tweet. Stop going down. I'm just kidding. It doesn't really. I might not be influencing it at all. I don't know.
But whatever. You're doing what you can. So what's going on with that? With your liquidity program?
So we had initially done a postponement, an indefinite postponement. All this was happening. It's hard to I'm trying to think out how to word this. We might not be personally handling it anymore. Let me put it that way. That's about all I can say right now. It's still going to happen, but
you're worried.
We might not have to personally handle it. Let me put it that way.
Oh, you might not have to. Okay.
Yeah. And that's all I can say right now.
Okay, gotcha. And how is the I mean, because this is so, ASAs that aren't on any centralized exchanges. Like, what is your assessment? How is the token doing? How is, or all of them? Because the only ones that have is YLDY and Opulous, right? Those are the only two that are on other exchanges.
No, there's others.
I'm sorry, Smile.
Is on it. Oh, Smile too. Algo Gems is on a couple as well.
Smile.
Those are the big ones. Algo Gems too. Algo Gems and Smile.
Gotcha. And so is how does that work? What's the price? Are people still trading HDL on Tinyman? Or what's happening?
But they probably shouldn't be, because there's no liquidity, so you're going to get, you're not going to get a very good deal. whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
People, I mean, people want what they want though. Like, I
They're
try
gonna
not
do
to
what
comment too much about, anything to do with
Surprise.
that part of it. My motivation for the staking program was just to create a more stable experience for everybody and kind of give back to early supporters.
Right.
So, that's still going to happen, maybe in a more comprehensive way now, which is what
Okay.
it's looking like might happen, which is good.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like we covered that, right? Do you feel good about that? Is there anything
For
else
the
you want to
most
add?
part, I just want to maybe end with, just reiterating that I am not a jerk or an asshole, and I'm going to be personally making sure that, what happened gets resolved completely as we move forward, and it relaunches, and we're going to make sure that everybody's whole again after this. Is really what I want to emphasize.
Great. Well, from an outsider's point of view that's been watching this and been watching you tweet and watching, just watching your actions, it's clear to me that you're not an asshole and your intentions are good. So, so I think that is great, the work that you're doing. And yeah, I mean, and there's some positive things that are happening too, right? I mean, there's other things that are happening other than this exploit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I think we can move past that now, right? We've already started to try to shift into a, progress.
Yeah. So progress. So let me look here. So, okay. There's so many things. Let's start with some of the fun things. Can we start with the fun thing? Let's start with the NFT, the Astros. I mean, this thing's a hit. You guys I came out of nowhere with an NFT. How many is there? 400? Is that what you said?
There's going to be 400. We've done, I think, 58 so far. You were at 58.
So, okay. And you did the first 42. And
I did.
And they are popular. One of them, what's the floor on an Astro?
5,000 algos is the floor. So it'll cost about $8,000 for one of mine right now.
Whoa.
And we're on number 50 out of 400, and we're going up 50 algos a week in price. So the next week they're going to be 300, and then the next week they're going to be 350 is the starting price, and then by March they're going to be like 800 or 900 algos each for the floor price. Not the floor. It's not called floor when you're selling it. It's called your base price or whatever.
Got it. Holy moly, good for you. I mean, they're beautiful. So I mean, that's fantastic. So this has got to be this is a wonderful tool for you guys because you have a lot of things that you're building. And so that's so cool. That's so cool.
It's been a lot of fun. And that was kind of part of the motivation to begin with, is we wanted to do something fun and find a way to get involved with the NFT community, because the NFT community is a lot of fun, and it's very exciting to get involved with the art part, because the opportunity that blockchains make for artists is really, really cool. And it's the first time in a generation where artists can actually get appropriately rewarded for the work that they're putting in their art. So we like to use it as an opportunity to promote up and coming projects, and there's a lot of fun collaboration stuff that we do as well. And yeah, it's cool to have it's like a really cool community glue too, it's people that have one, it's you got one.
Well, and there's only 50 of them out there, right? So or 52 you said. So
like that.
Yeah, so it's a small group now, but that group will grow. And I mean, that's another thing, that's another positive, is that we've been talking for a while, and that first time we talked, your community was significantly smaller than it is now, and then the second time we talked, I was like, whoa, this thing is growing. And now it's like I go to your Telegram, and it's just like, that thing's buzzing all day, and I'm noticing your tweets are just there's a lot more action going on with headlines. So congratulations on successfully growing this, man. I mean,
thank you.
Forum is public, right? So how's that
almost
going?
900 users already. Yeah,
that's amazing. How's that going?
It's really cool. You know what? I got an interesting data point about that too. So there was a lot of speculation when we first launched Forum how expensive it was going to be, because I never ran a social network before or had any clue how expensive it would be or anything. And with 850 users, I just got a bill from our hosting service that we have right now, and it's roughly $400 a month for our hosting, which means that it's like 50 to 70 cents per user, which is really, really cool. I thought it was going to be like $5 or $10 a user because I had no clue how, how to break down like server costs and everything, because we have like databases and service workers and all kinds of stuff that are part of it, like different types of programs on servers and everything. But yeah, it's like way more affordable than I was expecting, which is cool because we don't charge anything for it. It's just, you just have to hold 250 of the HDL tokens in order to access it. And because we've never sold any of them, it's just free the way we see it, right? It's just like people get to use it for free. And it's a really great way to have a insulated community without any like negativity, or, people have an incentive to see it succeed. So you see a lot of constructive conversations and a lot of like, it's really, really cool to like see it. And it's not like a feedback loop either, which is interesting. And some people were worried about that. Like, if you have a closed community, how do you make sure it's not just like a feedback loop of, just constantly hyping one thing? It's actually way more organic than that. And a lot of the conversations have absolutely nothing to do with what we're specifically building. And the interactions are all really, really positive, which is the core, like, that was like our core thesis for social media, is that if you can create a model that doesn't rely on advertising for revenue, then you can actually incentivize healthy conversations. And we're seeing it every day with the interactions people are having.
I need to sign on more. I struggle with social media, and it's hard to keep up with social media. I need to get on.
No kidding.
More.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard.
Yeah, you're like, social media is hard, man. I get it. All right. So I also, because even just personally with AB2, that's been hard to get on, and I think a lot of those problems are with Algo Explorer, right? And so I noticed a tweet from you recently, I think it was yesterday or maybe today, about you guys are going to invest in server hardware to help with that. So what's going on there?
Okay, so our original motivation was not necessarily to help with it so much as it is that it's just a really, really cool thing. Like, as soon as you get into the server, like, kind of part of like developing, that's like the hardcore stuff. That's when you get to do real stuff. Like, because you only have so much like ability to what you can actually like do with your own computer or with like cloud computing sort of stuff. But you get a couple like servers set up and you can do just about anything. So it's a really exciting thing to like want to do. It's really expensive, which is why, thankfully we're going to be able to afford it. But it's going to be really cool, the kind of stuff that we're going to be able to build with it. Because those things are insanely powerful. They're like $5,000 or more per piece that we're going to be doing for it. But our plan is to create our own like node system for Algorand, and there's a lot of conversations that have been happening about, there's two different pieces to this with Algo Explorer. One, a decentralized blockchain should have a lot more than one API service, right? That's really important. You should not have a single point of failure for APIs. There's PureStake, but that one isn't used very well because it isn't used that much because people don't know about it that much, and because they do a lot of throttling, which is fine for their free tier. They only let you do so many things per however long when you're using it, unless you do like a paid tier. And developers generally like to use things that they don't have to pay for the most part. Which is part of the like software community. A lot of the stuff we do is free. People like to do free stuff, and then you end up building relationships that turn into enterprise kind of relationships through that process, which is a core part of the developer community. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to host our own nodes and allow people to basically have like a backup for Algo Explorer. If you're building dApps or anything like that, and you want to either split traffic through multiple, or use us as a backup if Algo Explorer goes down, that'd be a great thing that you'd be able to do. And then if you want to have your own like if you want to use this as like your proprietary like node indexer provider and everything, we could work out plans and stuff for that too. But it would be really cool for all of our applications and stuff to be able to have our own, because we'd be able to do like some really epic stuff. So that's kind of like where we're headed, which is gonna be really cool.
Man. So I kind of skipped over this, and so I'm going to go back just real quick. So you mentioned the 250 HDL that you need to be part of Forum, and you also had mentioned some of the concerns about it being kind of like a feedback loop or a bubble or whatever. So I guess there's two questions there. I know I asked for questions, and the two questions that I remember that people wanted to know that weren't involved with Tinyman and all that were, the utility of HDL and maybe outside of that 250 for Forum. And then, I have questions just about bias in general. And I always find that question, I find that topic interesting just because we're all biased. But so before we talk about bias, so what are the plans for future utility for HDL, or is it strictly a staking tool to participate in the social media platform?
No, so right now HDL is a utility token that's used to log into Forum. Literally, it's like a key. You have the tokens, you can log into Forum. That's utility. Right. Very, very straightforward. It's very simple. But we have very, very ambitious plans for it. And what we want to do is we want to be able to use it. We want to be able to actually transition it into an actual currency, where basically people would be able to purchase our entire suite of professional products at a discount if they're using it for the transactions.
Right. There it is.
And yeah, we're gonna have some super expensive products, so there's gonna be an incentive for enterprise clients and stuff to be able to pay for these things in our native token, which is kind of like a 18-month plan. I think it's kind of like the trajectory for about how long it'll take to do. There's some different pieces we have to put in place to get to that point. But yeah, so it's a utility token right now. It allows you to log into Forum, and then we're going to be transitioning it into an actual currency. In order to be able to get to that point, we got to do quite a bit of decentralization, which is going to be important, and then to be able to incentivize its usage for transactions is really where we're headed. Got it.
And right. And so what are some very expensive things that enterprises are going to be buying? Are those already in the works, or is that further out? What are some of the things that you're seeing that you're going to be providing that?
Right. So AlgoCloud is going to be a big one. With AlgoCloud, you'll be able to basically run a business on the blockchain. So if you white label AlgoCloud, for example, you can basically host your own version of it without any of our branding. It's just your own branding. A good example of a use case for it would be let's say you're a manager of a small hedge fund, you got 20 or 40 investors that are part of your fund, and you have exposure to multiple different Algorand DeFi projects, right? Well, basically you can invite all of your investors to set up their own private analytics dashboard that they can use to then monitor all of their different DeFi analytics and everything. And this can be a comprehensive platform that has everything that an intranet service would have, whether it be chat or email. It has, you can upload files with AWS. It has Google authentication. It has really, really good security. And it can be partitioned in subdomains for all of your different users. And it's a very powerful platform that's going to be able to do really enterprise grade analytics and stuff like that. For this white label model, it could run up to between $20,000 and $50,000 a month for enterprise clients that are using it. Now, if we incentivize them with let's say, for example, a 5 to 7% discount on your monthly usage fee if you pay in HDL token, that's an incredible incentive, for an enterprise client. Right, that'll save them. It could save them, $5,000-$6,000 a month. And that we have a bunch of different types of products like that we're going to be able to have. Enterprise clients are going to be a big customer base for us, more than retail necessarily for a lot of our more complicated things that we're building.
Yeah, I think that. So I think that certain people that aren't paying as close attention to you. They see headline news and they're like, okay. And then they see social media and they're like, okay, well, maybe those things are going to work. Those are awesome. But I don't think people are really understanding the scope. And I think that when I go into your Telegram, there are some people that do understand the scope of what you guys are trying to do. I keep on bringing up your Telegram. I feel like this is like an infomercial for your Telegram. But there's some people very excited about, because what's the max supply on the HDL token?
25 million.
Yes, I mean, come on. So if there is, if there are corporations and enterprises using AlgoCloud and they're paying an HDL token, then there's going to be a lot of very happy early investors in HDL. I think that seems clear.
This is not for us, financial advice. We've only ever given away for free, right? While we're still building stuff, it's very experimental right now. What people decide to do with those tokens that they have received is completely up to them right now, right? Because as of right now, that's how we see it. We let people log into Forum for free, essentially, with the token.
Right. Okay. So, another new product that we haven't talked about in previous episodes is Algo Glyph. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Algo Glyph?
Yeah, so this is a really cool one that we put together. So we have been talking for a long time about how to do efficient data storage on chain, right? It's a very interesting concept because in a transaction field, you're only allowed to do up to a kilobyte of data, right? For your note field, essentially. So the idea is, how can you either compress data into a kilobyte or encode something that actually works within the blockchain space that's under a kilobyte? And we tried a lot of different things. We were doing stuff with JPEGs and trying to compress them down to under a kilobyte, and then using AI to try to re-enhance them after the fact. But that's kind of like a hacky solution, because you're not actually storing that data as much as you are enhancing a crunched version of it after the fact, right? So it's not like a pure blockchain like use case. And then I came up with the idea one time. I was like, what about signatures? Surely that's under a kilobyte. What if we could encode signatures into a note field so that you could use an actual signature on chain and then decode it and then see your signature when you get a transaction? And so we actually came up with an algorithm that will encode the signature into what you're required to encode it into for the note field. And then the same program can then pull that transaction and decode it into your signature that you wrote on basically like a scratch pad on the app. And there's some really, really, really compelling use cases for this.
Right. So I don't quite understand, but so does this mean like maybe like an artist can sign their NFTs and things like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So that's so cool. I mean, come on.
And people are like speculating. They're like, I don't even know if this is on Ethereum or if any of these other chains have something like this. It's a really cool concept.
Yeah, I mean that was my next question. Nobody's done this. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. We've never found an example. So until somebody shows us it on another chain, we might have been the first ones to do it. But there are other very practical use cases for this. For example, and we've gotten feedback from people that said like they'll be doing transactions and their bank will contact and be like, why is this not signed? We need a signature for like a big transaction that happens on chain. You can't use an actual signature on chain. And then a lot of banks or courts of law won't accept a digital signature that's just ones and zeros, right? You have to have an actual signature for it to hold up in a court of law for a lot of different things.
Right.
But now because of this, you can actually sign your transactions. You can sign contracts. You could do an actual like billing or invoice to somebody and sign it. And then for NFTs, if you're a single artist, right, by signing your NFTs, that's a new value add. Or if you're a collection with multiple artists, those artists can sign their individual NFTs. Or like if you're a celebrity and you want to create an NFT collection, by including your signature, that's another value add for it. There's all kinds of ways, like practical ways that this is a really, really like promising like utility for blockchain that we've now opened the door to. I've always felt like Headline operates at the intersection of TradeFi and DeFi, or at the intersection of Web 2.0 and Web 3.0. There's a lot of blockchain purists that believe that you should throw out all the stuff from Web 2.0 and just rebuild it in a completely decentralized way. We take more of a hybrid approach. We say that, we're going to bring all the stuff that works from Web 2.0, and then we're going to add all of the really cool new stuff that's never been available before with Web 3.0. Right. And this is a good example for it. And so the signatures, they don't have to be for your actual identity either. That's an important thing. As like more concepts like the metaverse start to mature, people are going to be incentivized to keep a consistent digital identity, right? So one way or another, there's going to be an incentive to keep a consistent identity. Now with something like a signature, that allows you to have a digital identity that, it might not even be your real identity, but it's one of those like organic or semi-organic ways that you can add like flesh to a digital identity.
Right.
And this is actually, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I see what you're saying. So if my avatar is a Algowana or an Astro, let's use an Astro. So if you're able to get those into the metaverse and be my avatar, and then nobody knows who I actually am, I could use my signature, so everybody will know that it's that fantasy character. It can keep a consistency, it can. You can see that you can see where I've been, even though you don't know it's Cooper from the Recoup. Right.
Yes. And then so like we have a concept that we're going to be trying to do at some point that is really, really interesting for digital identity. And this is kind of philosophical, or at least it starts that way. It's kind of like, what is a way to incentivize somebody to keep a digital identity instead of just using a bunch of different pseudonyms and fake identities and then switching them out constantly? How do you incentivize people to keep a consistent digital identity? Right. And so I've been thinking about this for a long time. And one idea that I have is through a blockchain-based credit system. If you can provide a line of credit, and I don't mean like, so when you hear about credit in the blockchain space right now, it's like a collateral-based credit system where it's like, you have this much Bitcoin. If you give us your Bitcoin to hold, you can now take this much Ethereum with 5% additional, right? That's collateral-based. That's like a pawn shop. We don't want to do that. We have the idea of creating an actual, like a kind of actual credit system whereby you have a digital identity and we provide a line of credit to your digital identity, right? That has a credit history. So it'd be the idea of like bringing the credit industry into the blockchain space, and then incentivizing people that can keep a consistent digital identity with more credit the longer they've had it. So that even if somebody has bad credit, they would still be given more credit than somebody with no digital identity, which would have no credit, right? So if you can get people to keep a consistent digital identity through incentivizing them to basically grow a history or credit history with it, that's a big piece of the digital identity question that we're having now in Web 3.0. Wow. And signatures are the first part of that.
Hearing all of these things that you're doing in the future of what you're doing, it's almost like you're doing people a service by making them stake 250 to be part of Forum, just to make sure that when all this stuff comes out, they still have 250 HDL. But So all right, well, okay. So let's. There's so many things, and but I want to real quick. I want to indulge what I brought up earlier about bias in general, because we haven't talked a lot about, what you're trying to do with headline news and with your unbiased social media platform. So what is it? And we've talked about this in previous conversations, but maybe everybody hasn't watched those or whatever. I find it to be an interesting conversation because clearly bias is in all of us. We're all biased, but I guess that doesn't mean that we have to, our discourse has to be that. I don't know. What are your main thoughts about bias, and what are you trying to create? Like, what is it that you're trying to really create with headline and forum?
Right. So, going back to the bias thing, it's the idea of getting people to approach political discourse in a constructive way, because basically, because of the way that social media has manipulated us for the last 15 years, all of our conversations about politics are very non-constructive. It's like almost anything that you do is going to trigger whoever it is you're talking to on social media about politics, because we've been basically PTSD'd by this really, really, really toxic social media atmosphere for so long. So it's kind of like stripping all that down and rebuilding it in a constructive way, and finding a way to move forward with constructive political discourse without, getting the other person to DM you and say they want to burn your house down and, kill your family or anything.
Well, that's right. Because it seems like in this day and age, I can't agree with, somebody on the right or on the left on a particular issue. Not that I agree with their entirety, but maybe I'll agree with them on cryptocurrency, or maybe I'll agree with them on cleaning the ocean, or whatever. Two things that I'm interested in: cleaning the ocean and cryptocurrency, right? And so, and if I agree with somebody on that, then I'm either a cuck, or I'm a what's a bad name for a Republican?
Racist. That's the big one.
Fascist.
You're a fascist. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm either a fascist or a
cuck, basically.
Yeah. So, well, it's an interesting. It's so toxic, right? I mean, that is what you're saying. This just we can't talk about anything. We can't talk about anything, and so I don't know. I think it's such a noble mission that you're trying to do, but I find it so incredibly difficult, because it's like, managing just like family conversations. And it's just like, I think obviously, just as a person that communicates, it's like it's always a good thing to find where you agree. But if these, and then and have your conversation from there. But I would be worried that, that a social media platform like Forum just will naturally find its own bubble. And I think, that would be my concern if I were building that. And I would be really interested in figuring out how to widen that tent and making it a bubble of all of us able to have a communication that is civil. And are you noticing, are there political conversations happening in Forum? Are you noticing like what's happening? What's going on in there? I guess I should go on there and find out for myself, but. Well,
it's kind of like, we're lucky right now that we're building all this in an off year. So next year it's going to be a lot more exciting, because there'll be a midterm, but like, for off years, they're not usually that exciting to talk about politics to begin with. So you don't hear nearly as much political discourse. So,
and people are basically exhausted.
Our trial by fire isn't going to happen until next year. Really, is really when we're going to see how like successful this whole thing could, or it'll just completely unravel. Right, like. The midterms will come around and everybody will just start ripping each other's throats out. But we have some plans for creating this kind of like constructive political discourse. One thing we're going to be doing is we're going to make users label their posts with the bias hashtag if they're making a political statement that is biased. That's going to be a really important thing, right? So like, we're going to require users to check themselves before they make that kind of post.
Yeah, you're like cultivating self-awareness. I like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's the important thing. If somebody can recognize their own bias when they're making a post, then people are going to be much more receptive to having a conversation with them, right? So like, let's say, for example, I'm talking to like a hardcore Democrat, for example, and they're like, all Republicans are racist, for example. And if they posted that on Forum and they put hashtag bias, right, in their post, that would be a really interesting conversation to have with somebody that recognizes that. Because then when you start talking to them, you can be like, you can actually feel, because if somebody can recognize that that's where they're coming from, then you can be like, well, why are you coming from this perspective? And you can have a really organic, honest conversation about why they feel that way. Because they're able to recognize that even when you say something, making a blanket statement might not actually be, completely, on the level, right? Because you can recognize that yourself. Or like, a hardcore Republican that's like, these globalist Democrats are going to destroy the economy and turn us into Soviet Russia, right? If somebody wanted to post that on Forum and they put hashtag bias on the post, having that conversation with them it could potentially be really insightful, because they're already basically coming to the table with the recognition that they have a viewpoint that might be a little skewed, right? Because if you can recognize your own bias, you can recognize that your own viewpoint might be a little skewed to your own either, to either your environment or your own history or your interaction with those people. right? So it's like kind of a signal that somebody wants to have an honest conversation. And I think that's going to go a really, really long way towards this goal of creating an environment where people can have healthy political discourse.
I think so too. As you have been building out these other things, you've been doing the NFTs, you've been AlgoCloud, Algo Pay, AlgoSwap, pipeline. Are you noticing? Are you feeling less passionate about this? Are you falling? Are you feeling distance from this, or are you still just as passionate and connected to that mission as you were in the beginning? Because I know this is where this started, right? This was the spark that brought you, whatever you were doing. From our early conversations, this headline was the first idea.
Right. Okay. So going back to what I was saying, this is an off year. I love politics. I'm a political junkie, but off years are really boring for people that are political junkies because not a lot's happening unless we get an impeachment or, something really unfortunate, or somebody dies that's on the Supreme Court, or there's an assassination, or somebody accidentally sends a picture of their, genitals on Twitter, etc. Right? These kinds of things aren't going to be very exciting, like, topics right now. So, and not only that, but the headline news website was really, really like poorly built. So as soon as our funding stuff gets squared away, we're going to be putting like a couple $100,000 into rebuilding it, and then hiring a news team basically to start creating our original content for it. But more importantly, like for me personally, it's an off year for politics, and it's just not that exciting. But come next year, let's when we revisit
I'll ask you this question.
You know what? It's a little late now, but come next, like it really kicks into gear around like March or April. That's when like the field starts to kind of like come into focus, right? You'll be seeing me, if we have the newsroom in decent shape by then, I'll get press passes to all the different like events that the politicians will do, so that I'll actually be able to like do some coverage from whether it be Republicans or Democrats when they do their town halls and things in different places. It's really, really fun to cover politics, especially when you can, especially when you come at it from my perspective, which is really like the political theater, the theatrical element of it is so super exciting. I love debates. I love it's just like a heightened life. I mean, I love politics, so I love talking about it. It's just not that exciting right now. Not a lot's happening. I want to see, I would love to see a good, like, what I would like to see in the next like presidential election? I want to see a couple of young guys, or, a young guy and a young woman, as the nominees, because nice. We tend to nominate people in their like late 70s or early 80s for president, which is really unfortunate because
early 80s. Have we ever even done that? I don't think
we're about to. We might have a couple of them for our next one, but it's unfortunate because you're really having two people have a conversation that's not quite as relevant as it should be, because they're a little bit removed from both the struggles and the the successes of the generation who's, it used to be that the life expectancy was like 35, right? So imagine back in 1700s when you have 35 as your life expectancy, you have a bunch of young people that are making these really important decisions, which is the way it should be, because they're the ones that are most getting affected by them. But as our democracy has gone longer and longer, it seems that older and older people are holding these positions of power, and they're kind of the most removed from a lot of the decisions that they're making, because they're not really affecting them personally. And that's kind of a problem that we have right now, which is why, I would love to see a couple of young people running for president, because you would have a completely different kind of dynamic. And, the same could be said for a lot of, other positions in politics, like senators or representatives. And it's usually you'll see a lot of times now, you'll see one young person, one really old person, and that's just not that exciting either, because they're both speaking completely different languages. We really need to motivate younger people to get involved in politics, but they don't want to get involved in politics because they see it as being completely toxic and not and that's unfortunate. And that's something that social media has created, is a general perception that politics are toxic.
Well, yeah, because it's hard to speak your mind these days. It's hard to put yourself out there and say what you really think, because one side or the other is it's very toxic. It is. So,
Yeah.
and we're putting, what's the incentive? What's the incentive for anybody to get into politics? You might as well, start a cryptocurrency. So it's much more lucrative and fun. All right. So wrapping up here. So let me just, so we have Algo Pay, AlgoSwap.
Oh, wrap up already. We got a long way to go. I feel like there's a lot of stuff to cover.
We barely even
we covered 3 topics. So out of our wall,
well, Tinyman, we talked about that for a bit, but so Algo Pay, AlgoSwap. What is there anything new to report there? Are we what's happening there?
Did AlgoSwap exist when we had our it didn't exist when we had our last.
It didn't, did it?
No,
it didn't.
It didn't. We didn't even.
But
talk
I think
about
you may. You know what? I think if I remember correctly, I think you may have announced it a couple of the next day after our interview. So I was a little. You announced something right after our interview. I was like, oh, he could have said that in the interview.
I don't know if we had started building it yet, though.
Okay,
that is a really cool subject to talk about, though.
Let's talk about AlgoSwap.
Cool.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So first of all, AlgoSwap is the world's first embeddable DEX.
Right.
And this was a groundbreaking thing that we were able to accomplish, basically. Interacting with the Tinyman smart contracts with a front end that is embeddable on any website in the whole world, just like Algo Pay. So you can, if your website accepts custom JavaScript, which most websites do, including Squarespace, and that's like the one I like to highlight. You can put a decentralized exchange on Squarespace.
That's so funny.
Talk about Web 3.0, and to be able to do it with 7 lines of code that you can copy and paste knowing nothing about coding. That is a enterprise grade piece of software that somebody can just have on their website with no experience coding.
So where did this come from? I mean, so
we made it.
This isn't a it's just like you keep on doing these things that when you say them, it's like, well, this seems like obvious, but then like Algo Glyph. I mean, this is another example. So nobody has done this? Nobody's done.
No way. The closest thing you might,
This is like you and a guy, a couple of guys, Aaron and Brian.
Guys in the garage,
Yeah, a couple of guys in the garage. I mean, this is it. Like, where are you right now? This isn't the normal background. Where are you?
No, I'm in Dallas right now, visiting some family.
Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry. Okay, there you go. Not that I'm trying to,
you're doxing me on. You're like, I need your address. What time do you wake up in the morning?
Yeah. So okay, AlgoSwap embeddable DEX that you can even do on, what do I have? I have Wix. Which I haven't built my website yet, but I do own CooperDaniels.com. Okay, so on CooperDaniels.com, I could easily incorporate a DEX on my own personal website if I wanted.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. So Algo Meow is a project that we help out a lot with different things and offer them advice and stuff. And I'm trying to remember how quickly they were able to do it, but a video on our Twitter is a video that they made of how quickly they could do it. And it was like, what was it, like a minute?
Yeah,
a minute and a half.
Yeah, it was. It might have even been less than a minute.
Maybe 90 seconds. That is like,
yeah, maybe it was in the seconds.
Yeah, I mean, talk about coming a long way for crypto. And then the thing that we talk about a lot is you can't do this on other chains. You can't. Right. You could never build something quite like this on another chain.
Yeah.
It's really cool that we're able to build this stuff. Because it's
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, you saying that, it's something that it seems like every week we hear about how Solana went down. Solana's been attacked and it's down, right? And I think Solana's, I don't know, their market cap I think is like 5 or something, and there's obviously good things about it, but it's just in my view they are probably the biggest competitor to Algorand, and that's the I guess you can make a case for Cardano, but Solana is probably, or outside of Ethereum, is the biggest competitor for. And it's crazy to me. We just went through a little exploit on one exchange. It just so happened to be the only one, so it's a big deal. I mean, let's
yeah.
But it's still, at the same time, it's just like, and then you read the next day, it's just like Solana's down for 8 hours, and it's just, I don't even know what my point is, except for Algorand's better than Solana, but I'm not shy about saying that. And that's where my bias comes in. Hashtag bias. Yeah.
Hashtag bias.
I don't even know what my point is, but there it is. So you were talking about how you couldn't do it anywhere else other than Algorand.
Yeah, and that's going to get to our plan for it, because we have a really cool plan for what we're going to turn it into. And what we want to do with AlgoSwap is to end up making it like a router and an indexer, where it's like, as more of these dexes come online, when you use AlgoSwap, it'll actually be able to find you the best price if you're going to be trading something. So we'll be able to index multiple dexes, and then you'll be able to select the one that has the best value, because we're going to be getting a much broader range of dexes. Algo Dex is about to come online. That's going to be an order book dex, and that's going to be really interesting. You're going to see a lot of crazy arbitrage on there, definitely. And then Humble Swap from Reach is about to come online. That's going to be really interesting.
Then there's the pre-sale for DeFi, right?
Yes, and then so that's something we can talk about real quick, because there's a lot of confusion about that. That's a super legit project, and some people don't know that yet. It's a really, really professional project that's being built. I think they're in Austria, perhaps. And I think that they have a Carnegie Fellow like on their executive team, which is super cool. Like people have Wikipedia articles that are part of their team. I'm like, damn it. it's going to be a really professional team and product, and
now I'm mad that I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. or whatever to take part in their pre-sale. So
you dropped the ball on that one big time.
Were you up for that? Did you take?
We don't. No. I invest my time. Okay, that's I invest my time. That's how I invest. So
there you go. That's good. There's Humble Pay. There is
Humble Swap.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Humble Pay is a different thing. Humble Swap, and Algodex. I'm talking to Alex next week. I think he confirmed with that. And
they just did a little round. 3.1, 3.2.
Yeah. So that should be coming along soon. And then DeFi. Do you know of any other exchanges coming? Or those
well, there's a couple of interesting like hybrids that are coming out. What is it called?
WAGMI. Isn't there WAGMI? We're gonna make it.
That's an interesting one to begin with, because that was created by the guy that made ARC, the Asia Reserve Currency, and they're kind of shifting into into a different direction than originally the original plan was. And that is, I was experimenting with it. It's an interesting product. You should definitely take a look at it.
I will. I
would like to hear some sort of commentary on it from the creators, because it's interesting. Not sure I've completely figured it out yet. Like it has potential though. It definitely feels like it could be the platform for something bigger. There's some other ones coming out that nobody knows about yet that I do, or that aren't really talked about. So Boson Labs is making one called Element, and they're pretty far along. That one's about to pop off. Nobody talks about that yet. And then what else is there? Boson Labs, they're coming out with something really interesting. And then there's another one coming out that I forgot what it was called, but they just did the Art Goanna on it. It was like a auction that they were doing with it was like Algorand and Algo Pulse did like a collab sort of thing. But the platform that it was done on is really interesting, because it's a peer-to-peer basket swapping platform, which is interesting. And that's like a third type of exchange you can have that's purely peer-to-peer, where it's like somebody says, I want to trade a Algoanna and 200,000 Smile for something, and then somebody else is like, I would like to do that trade with you, and then then it allows you to swap that way, where it's a direct peer-to-peer as opposed to a AMM like Tinyman that's all automated.
Right. I mean,
Basket
just talking about all these different exchanges. I mean, Algorand is so new. I mean, especially the DeFi space is so brand new, and the amount of growth we're about to go through. You know, I think we got a little rattled last weekend. There was so much momentum and so much optimism, and we got a little rattled this week. You know, it was like, whoa, wait, this isn't perfect. Wait a second. Not everything is going to be in, but I think we should remember that it's the beginning, and there is so many cool things about to happen.
Well, not only that, but everything we've been talking about so far, these are retail products, and retail is a small part of Algorand's, like, you know, strategy. Once, you know, there's going to be a lot of institutional projects and capital coming to Algorand the next year. That is going to be so much larger than anything that's going to be, you know, built on the retail side. So if you didn't notice that when Tinyman went down, the price of Algo actually went up. It's not because there was a direct correlation. It's because the larger market isn't pricing Algorand in terms of its DeFi offerings. It's pricing it in terms of its appeal to institutions, right? So that's
and governments. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the retail DeFi element could be what, 10% of the value of Algorand compared to what it can do for institutions and governments and everything else, right? So it's really easy when you're down there in the trenches to, like, you know, think that this is it. But we're like, you know, do you ever watch Men in Black or Men in Black 2? Like how, I think at the end of Men in Black, you find out that our world is inside a galaxy that's actually a marble that much larger aliens are playing marbles with, right? Or in like Men in Black 2, like we're inside of a locker that's inside of a much larger locker that's inside a giant wall of lockers, our like universe is, right? That's actually just part of this, you know. So when you think about that, like the DeFi space in Algorand is such a tiny little thing compared to what Algorand's really doing.
Yeah.
And people will wonder, like, what's their marketing plan or what are they trying to do? It's like, oh, they have much bigger plans than you know, what we're doing here in the trenches on the DeFi side or anything. That's not to say that what we're building can't end up being super innovative and, you know, and impactful, right? It's just, you know, right now we're still really, really small compared to all of the really big players that are involved in Algorand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and you know, when you hang out on like the Algonauts Discord and stuff like that, you know, we're a bunch of guys that are interested in ASAs. Yeah, exactly. You know, not all, but yeah. I mean, you're a bunch of guys concerned about one certain aspect of this, and the news that will, you know, look, let's be honest, like people are interested in what's going to make the prices make them richer. And that's, I mean, come on,
people are greedy. Yeah, people
are greedy. All of us have it in us. Nobody is, you know, nobody's. Pretty soon, you're gonna be. We'll meet in person. You're gonna have this fancy Rolex, and I'll be like, you lost. What happened, Aaron? What happened?
No, like, I'm gonna get a Patek Philippe. I wouldn't get a Rolex. Come on.
You're like, come on, bro.
Those are for the plebes. I'm just kidding. I need to buy a new pair of shoes. I haven't got a new pair of shoes in like 2 years. That tells you how much I invest in my company. You know, that's one good way of looking at it. I put my money in my company and my time in Algorand.
I started buying more loud shirts.
I like the florals. They really, you know,
I think it's
lovely.
It really highlights the gray on my chin.
I mean, it's a happy kind of, you know, if you had like a little, like what is it called? The Hawaiian necklace? A lei would be nice. Little, you know, maybe a palm tree instead of that lovely house plant behind you.
Yeah, plant. That is.
What is it called? That thing?
This is a snake plant, but it's
snake plant.
It's struggling.
It's hurting here, right now. Yeah.
Over here, you can't see it because we've cut it, but that's a rubber tree. There we go.
Is that what they're called? Is it really a rubber tree?
No, this is a dusty rubber tree.
Is it real? Is it a real tree?
Real. Oh yeah, it's real. Nice. Yeah. Oh no, we keep it real. Authenticity is very important to the recoup. All right. All right. So okay, Pipeline UI. Is there
yes,
you know,
tons of updates there. So we are winding down our second foundation piece of the project. We've been working on that for the last like four months or so now. We are about to be releasing 2 incredibly innovative dApps that are a part of it in the next like week or two. They're getting reviewed by the foundation right now. Really, really exciting, innovative stuff. I really want to tell y'all more about it, but I love like creating a constant air of suspense around things. So I'm not going to tell y'all specifically like what these are, but they're both going to be really impactful.
Is there like a theme or is there something that you can tease us with?
Yeah, they're for two totally different like demographics. One of them is going to be for developers only. Like this is not going to be useful for anybody that's not a developer, but it's going to be really, really useful for developers. One of them, one of these applications. And then the other one is going to be really, really useful for DAOs. And this is something that I've kind of like decided that I want to like build some different applications that work for DAOs because we don't really have any DAO infrastructure on Algorand yet.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing that we're going to be building like kind of a DAO suite of tools for people to be able to create and operate their DAOs. And the first piece of it,
so necessary.
The first piece of it we're going to be releasing in about a week or so. And it's really cool. Like I can't wait for people to be able to kind of see what they're going to be able to do now. It's amazing. It's pretty cool. So both of those things, and then there are a bunch of other really like useful like smaller things that are part of this current pipeline milestone that we're on, and that we're wrapping all those up too. We should be done with all of it in the next week or so, which is really exciting. Yeah. So all that.
So are we going to get it? Are we going to get like an Astros DAO or anything? Are we looking towards like a?
No. I'm very supportive of people that are building DAOs, and I think that they're very, very essential for a lot of different things. But Headline is a corporation, not a DAO, which makes it even more interesting that we're going to be involved with building the tools for DAOs, because we kind of, we kind of see the need, and we're going to meet the need, even though it's not going to necessarily be utilized by us. And then so we're going to be building a foundation. I'm not sure where we're going to be setting it up yet, but it'll be a foundation style more than a DAO style, but we'll see. Depending on how exciting these tools are that we're building, I might just be like, you know what, maybe we'll make that foundation a DAO because we really want to utilize these tools we're building. We'll see.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So there's that. Let's see, what else we got? We've been translating the Libra network into Italian. That's almost done. That was quite a challenge.
Do you speak Italian?
A little bit. I did a semester there in Italy, and I have family that lives there, so I get the chance to speak Italian still some. So that's one thing that we've been working on a little bit as well, which is pretty cool. And then we're also we've also started experimenting with building some other things like a staking platform for ASAs, because a good audited staking platform is something that would be really useful.
Like an alternative to YLDY, or
no. YLDY has a very specific purpose, and I think they're doing a great job. But this would be more of a DEX style staking thing for projects that are just at the very beginning kind of thing. It'd be almost like a launchpad sort of concept for brand new stuff that wants to lock in, or and it would allow them to like lock in their ownership shares and stuff, so people aren't worried about rug pulls and things like that.
That brings me to another question that obviously people want me to ask, and if they made it to the 90-minute mark, what about HDL token on YLDY?
I guess you might have to revisit some of my answers from earlier. I guess would probably be the best answer to that.
All right. There you go. Well, I like that answer. I like it when when you ask somebody that question and they answer like that. It's usually. And
I try to always answer really clearly. I try to give really good, transparent, clear answers.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That sounds good. All right. So I kind of cut you off to say that you were talking about the Libra network and translate into Italian, and that's been like a kind of a monster of a project.
It was way larger of an undertaking than we expected, because we also decided to translate all of the text on the documentation for it, and it's been kind of overwhelming a little bit. It's funny, you might think like following everything we do that it's all easy. It's not. It's so much pain. constant nightmares is what we describe it when we're working on things. It's always a nightmare, no matter what you do, it's a nightmare to do it because it's never been done. There's no documentation to do it. And it's just a struggle from start to finish. 90%.
What do you do to relax? Like, what is your what is Aaron's downtime method?
Telegram. I'll chat with people on Telegram. That's when I'm winding down my day, I'll go on Telegram, or when I wake up or taking a break. And that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, like it might seem stressful, but I'm pretty chill while I'm working too. Cause like, I'll always have like the TV on, or I'll watch shows. Like, believe it or not, I watched 5 seasons of Downton Abbey while I was working on the first iteration of AlgoPay. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my development work while I'm watching, Downton Abbey, or like
I have to interrupt you for a second because okay, no, I'm not allowing you to move on to more because I enjoy this about you, because I remember a couple months ago you were talking about a Taylor Swift song, and then your first reference of a show is Downton Abbey. Like, I love this. I've watched Downton Abbey too, so I'm not
nice.
And I do appreciate Taylor Swift as well. I'm not. I think I gave you a little bit of a hard time on Twitter when you posted about Taylor Swift, which I was coming from a nice.
After the car crash, though, it was just never the same.
Yeah.
It was just never the same after that. Like, that kind of sucked the soul out of it for me. I had to have somebody, like a relatable character, so I love shows like that have characters I can relate to.
Oh, right. You're right, actually. Yeah, I know. I'm looking for a show right now. I'm looking for a show to watch. What are you watching now?
Well, Succession just finished season 3. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. No, a friend of mine.
Outstanding. It is so good.
A good friend of mine's on that show, or I am not currently a good friend, but he was a really good friend of mine when I lived in New York. He, I think he was in the first 2 seasons. He's an Asian guy, and I don't know what character he plays, but I think he was one of the heads of the other corporation.
You know
who I'm talking about? Yeah,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember there being a character. It's an outstanding show. I would highly recommend it. It's very funny. It's like it was made by the same guy that did The Big Short, and so it's got that same kind of feel to it, almost like a dark comedy sort of thing, but it's a really great satire about the Murdoch family. It's almost like that kind of an empire, but a really dysfunctional family. And it's having a cast of characters that's so unlikable that makes it such a great show, because all these characters totally unredeemable, and everything they do is in their own self-interest, but somehow it's it's the funniest, most pointed thing, one of the best shows on TV. Hands down. Let's see what else. The Expanse I started watching. That's really interesting.
Expanse.
It's it's a sci-fi about maybe 500 years, 1,000 years in the future or something, and we've expanded to Mars and the asteroid belt, and then there ends up being a big war. It's really interesting.
I like that. I keep on hearing Yellowstone. Have you watched Yellowstone?
I watched most of the first season, and then if I take a break from a show, it's really hard to start back, because sometimes you have to start back from the very beginning. And I really enjoyed it when I was watching it. The first season was really good. Yeah. And then for whatever reason, I had stopped watching it, because maybe it was after the first season that actually came out, and I watched it before season 2 had started or something. I should probably go back and all over TikTok now, people always make
And there's a spinoff. I'm sorry that I've just completely unwound this conversation to talk about television.
No, I love television. Television's great.
I do too. Yeah. I know. All right. So we talked about Libra Network. We talked about AlgoCloud, the Astros, of course. We talked about the server project that you have. I think we did it, man. And then
there was some more stuff about. Well, we barely touched on the Astros. There's a lot more interesting stuff there to talk about than what we covered.
When's okay, so an important question that absolutely nobody's asking you. So when's there the recoup Astro? What's going on?
You want one? We can make one. 100%. We've been we haven't reached out to nearly enough people for collabs on the non-NFT space yet. So that's one interesting thing, is we would like to do all the different tokens and projects and everything. We could do them for everything. Yeah, I'll have Brian make a recoup Astro.
All right. I'm glad I mentioned it. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. Well, I mean,
we're
linked together now, man. I mean, we keep on
forever.
We got to, we're forever. one day, and then soon, right? I mean, whatever. We should do this in person. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be epic. One thing we're gonna be doing that's coming out, we're building, or we are making an Astro specifically for forum users. It'll be a private sale that's going to be done either through Algo Gems or AB2, and it's going to be done directly inside forum, and we're going to be making, I think, 1,000 of them for forum users to be able to buy. So it'll be a specifically special thing just for forum users that they can buy. I think up to 3 each is the plan. And there'll only be 25 algos each, because we're making a really, really cool one specifically for forum, because while we're still kind of finished building out the development team and everything, there's some really cool things we want to do with forum that we haven't been able to do yet. So I wanted to find a way to show our appreciation to the crowd and the gang on forum that really is making it a exciting, interesting social network to be a part of. And that's going to be coming out next week, along with the next Astro drop that we postponed. That was supposed to happen on Sunday because of everything that's happening. It just seemed like not a good time to be. Not exactly
the time to be dropping your. I mean, you could have, but it would have been fine. But
it's kind of like in that movie Cloverfield. You know how it's like New Year's Eve and they're all having a New Year's Eve party, and then the monsters show up, and then it just kind of sucks the air out of the room. Yeah, it'd almost feel like if that happened on like the day before New Year's Eve, and then they want to have their New Year's Eve party, but like New York's destroed. It's just not.
Didn't seem timely. It didn't seem like the right time.
It's really not. It's not. You're not thematically getting there. For the party.
Right.
So we finally are getting our shirts ordered. So we've been talking about this for a while. I stayed up all night creating these different cool mock-up designs for shirts. Yeah. And we're finally going to be putting the order in. We're getting 50 of them. 25 of them have been pre-ordered.
I thought that I saw that people had received their shirt. No, did not see that. No, you're like, they definitely not received their shirts.
No, I felt so bad because we let people start doing pre-orders like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we hadn't placed the order yet because I get so slammed sometimes. It's hard to keep a thread for everything. But we finally got locked in. They're going to be ordered, I think, tomorrow, so we'll be able to start shipping them out to people in the next maybe a week and a half or two. The cool part though is these are extremely high quality shirts. I
remember you talking about where I think that you were testing all these different cottons.
I'm wearing one of the mock-ups right now. I tell you, I wear them all the time. This is a long sleeve one that's part of the same line. 100% Pima cotton. It's extra long staple. No matter how long you wear it or how many times you wash it, it gets softer.
Oh, I love that.
An incredible material that's made out of.
What does extra long staple mean?
It means that basically the cotton threads are a lot longer than normal cotton threads, so it won't fray, or a lot of times when you get a shirt and you wash it, it'll end up getting really clumpy. That you'll start seeing the piece of the cotton getting, and the longer the staple is, the less it's likely to fray like that, or to it'll get a softer texture. It's just a more durable shirt that'll last longer. And it won't stretch the same way. So even if it shrinks, it'll shrink proportionally. It's almost like high-tech cotton, which is a good way of thinking about it, even though it's still completely natural. Ours is grown right here in the United States. It's milled in Georgia.
I was going to say, I remember. South Carolina. It's so funny. I remember that. I was going to say. I think you said Georgia.
Yeah, I'm excited to get them. They're really cool looking. Because for the design, I kind of went with a ball ma style. Like a little French fashion for this essentially winter line, right? We're only doing the first one. We'll see how popular there are. I actually made 10 mock-ups for different styles. We'll see if we can actually do any more of them. They're pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of them. So
I mean, it's sort of hilarious. It's like you're talking about fashion design and sourcing cotton. It's just it is. I mean.
We talked to a couple of mills in Peru as well, because that's a great place.
Cool. Yeah, that's so cool, man. I mean, you're building all these tools, you're building all these platforms, and you're designing a merch line and sourcing your cotton. And what don't you do? What are you bad at? Is there? I mean, or what do you feel like? What's your weakness?
it was NFTs before because we didn't have
Yeah.
any exposure in the NFT space. And then we're like, we're going to do this and we're going to do it right.
And then you jumped in and people are like, we'll pay you $10,000 for these or Algo even more than that.
Well, I'm a consummate professional in everything I do. At least I try to be, right? If I try to do anything, I compare what I'm doing against the best, and I want whatever I do to be able to stand on its own. And I try to bring that to everything I do. And there's certain things that we don't really see ourselves getting heavily involved with. Auditing, we talked about that earlier.
Or you're
I don't
not
see
going
a
to be
future where we're in that role, for example.
And you won't be like, and you're not also looking to build like a DEX, like a Tinyman. That's not something that's.
I mean, part of me would like to, but part of me likes the idea of building things that interact with, like, I don't know. There's a lot of, it's such a responsibility to build something that's supposed to be automated to that extent. We like to build things that other people can build stuff with, because then, I can't imagine what the Tinyman crew went through when this happened the other day.
Oh my God.
It's devastating when you do something, when you make a mistake, but they didn't make a mistake, right? They didn't do anything. They built an excellent piece of software, and, an excellent, platform that got audited, and, everything was good to go. And then, for something like this to happen, on like New Year's Day, the day after that, and this stuff happens all the time in the DeFi space, right? Because no matter how good you build something, this stuff happens. And then it's just, I can't imagine, what it must be like to be going through what they are in that situation. This happens all the time. So you got to have real thick skin to do something like that. And, hats off to them for doing it. Well, we might do a DEX one day. We have ideas for what we would do with them. I think
there you go. You don't rule that out. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't rule anything out.
And it's hats off to, YLDY and Tinyman. I mean, these guys are doing things in Algorand. It's different than, Teal's different than other. It's just, there's a lot of, they are pioneering. They're pioneers. That's it. Yeah. And it's exciting. Both of those things. I mean, I've always been, because, I don't know anything about of the technical aspects, but it's just like from a branding perspective, like both of those projects are branded so cool, in my personal opinion. I think Tinyman and YLDY look great, and I love using them both. Obviously, Tinyman, I'm not using that right now, but we'll be back. We'll be back on Tinyman before we know it. It seems pretty clear.
Yeah, it's just maybe a couple more days. It's not gonna be.
It's not. You think it's only a couple more days?
I mean, I'm not going to, speak for anyone, but yeah, it's not going to take long.
It's nothing. Cool.
No.
All right.
It's not a. It was a flaw, but it wasn't systemic in that the entire thing is going to need to be rebuilt from scratch.
Got it. And they'll just, and now that all the
hardware and software and everything, it's very good what they built to begin with.
Yeah, and then now that maybe you can check and see how much.
Hold the thought.
All right.
Watch is like completely stalled out because they're like, well, I mean,
Aaron doesn't. I mean, Aaron isn't taking it seriously anymore, so it must be fine.
It's exactly sub 382.
I think you said 384.
Did I?
Okay.
Oh, there we need to go then, right? As soon as I get off and be like, 382, anybody? 381? 381? 380? 381?
Yeah. We'll see what it is tomorrow. All right. So let's for on a personal level to end this. So 2 years ago, what is it? Let's say 2019, 2020. What was Aaron Martinez doing before he found Algorand? Before headline news, where were you at, and how far have you come?
Wow. So this was right before COVID, 2 years ago. And this was right when I started getting into the news part. Because before that, my company was just financial services, and then I got really into news production part of it. Long, complicated path to get there. But it was around this time that I got confirmation I was going to be getting a press pass to a campaign event that kind of kickstarted my desire to really build something exciting in the news space and journalism and all that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I started to go to like different campaign events and stuff as a member of like the press corps right when the gravity of COVID was starting to dawn on everybody as well.
Right.
And then it was it was a long process to get from there to here. How that happened is they could probably make a movie about that one day.
That's another episode. All right.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right.
It was quite a journey.
It's been quite a journey, huh?
I also got COVID that same time. Wait, no. That was next year. Wait, I don't know. You get a certain age and everything starts to kind of like blend together.
Yeah. I know we I was supposed to be here on my own for a few days to catch up, and it seems like COVID is visiting right? my household currently. So we'll see. Hopefully everything's all right. Yep. All right. Well, hey, it's another fun one, man. This is our longest one. Next time we'll go for 3 hours. What do you think? Should I split this up or should I just let it run? What do you think?
Like one stream? No, let it run.
Yeah, just let it run, right? Okay. Yeah. Should I do like part 1, part 2, or just let it go?
Nah, let it go. People come. Yeah, it's an interesting thread.
I think so.
Well, if you're gonna cut the camera now, I wanted to let you know something. Last, or we're gonna say goodbye, or how's that gonna work first?
Do you want? We don't need to. Me and you can continue to talk. I love how I'm still recording this.
Right,
but
because I was gonna make a statement.
not on camera.
A comment.
Or do you want to make a comment on camera or off camera?
This one was going to be off camera.
All right, we can definitely do that. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And there we go. All right.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I look forward to coming back. Definitely.
Yeah, we'll be doing that soon. All right. See you later, man.